Hey everyone, it's Xant. So recently I've noticed a surge of questions regarding C-Power and how difficult things like Super Hard and Ono's Challenge are to some players. Some directed at me, some not. Well, after looking at a lot of arena opponents, people on my friends list, and people that I've spoken to that ended up showing me their builds, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room, or I guess readdress it, considering I talked about C-Power meaning nothing a long while ago. Because one thing you really have to know about this game, if you don't already, is C-Power, combat power, is completely arbitrary. Before I continue though, like this video if you enjoy my content, and subscribe if you want to see more. Getting these videos out to more eyes really helps everyone out, and it takes minimal effort to do so. Also, feel free to leave a comment with a topic you want covered. If I see enough hubbub about something, I'll get on it. Unless it's a demand for a tier list. You're out of luck. Normally I put this at the end of my videos, but I don't think people really watch all the way to the end, so putting it at the front this time. Now let's get into things. First off, let's talk about what C-Power actually is. To be short, it's a generalized power value of your machine. To be long and dry about it, it combines something and your EX skill levels together, effectively ignoring your raw stat values to give a number on how strong your machine should be. Now, why do I say that? Because straight up, C-Power doesn't actually reflect anything of value. Before we dive in, let me ask if you've ever played a standard JRPG. Dragon Quest, Golden Sun, Star Ocean, Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, Pokemon. All of these use stat values on characters to determine how much damage you do and how much damage you take. In some games, tiny differences you can count on your fingers mean the difference between stomping the enemy or being obliterated. And in others, this is way more lax, and you can have a healthy gap, but still win. It doesn't really matter though, it sums up to a numbers game. Gunpla Warfare is no different. Let's use some pictures here to make my point. Before I go on though, if I use your machine in this comparison, understand I'm not personally attacking you. Or maybe I am. Hopefully this will help guide you a bit on understanding some of the game mechanics. First thing we're going to show is this big 170k C-Power machine. It's a big, spooky number. You see that in Arena, you're probably going to back out. But look at the stats. It has decent armor, high defense due to the defender job and the parts used, but lackluster offensive output. In a fight, this machine would hit like a wet noodle, and as long as you had decent offensive stats, you could deal with this easily. Dodge and hit. If it swings back, it'll hit much softer than the C-Power implies it would. For example, here's one of my event suits. It actually has abysmal overall stats, but it still has a high C-Power. Now I'll grab my online suit, and as you can see, it's rocking some beefy offensive stats, but it's relatively a glass cannon. Want to know something though? I can still take quite a few hits, and I can dish out tons of damage at the same time with this. So what am I getting at? C-Power has nothing to do with stats. It boils down to effectively EX skill levels. Don't believe me? Here's another example. The exact same suit, but a different backpack. This one uses Kigali's Arena backpack, which I maxed out to test damage values of the EX skill, and it actually tested pretty well. So putting this backpack on instead of the Zeta backpack added 33,000 C-Power to my machine, and it barely modified my overall stat pool. Funny enough, if my original Zeta backpack was tuned up to gold, I would have overall lost stats by doing this switch. Anyways, all I'm showing here is that although high C-Power can mean a strong machine, more often than not, it's inflated values. Don't rely on it as a strength measurement. The raw stats and the modifiers used on those stats are all that actually matter. The difference between an 8k attack machine versus a 9k is actually noticeable once you start fighting things like Ono. Focus on one, don't spread your stats around. Content will become much easier as you focus on that kind of build. Now, word tags. Word tags, word tags, word tags. It's like Connect 4, but you need 5. And instead of winning, you just get a small bonus. Also, the pieces are scattered around the room. What I'm trying to say is, it's more trouble than it's worth. Let's use a couple common tags as examples, shall we? We have the Protagonist word tag, which gives you 10% melee attack, and Close Combat, which gives you 5% armor and 5% melee attack damage. Now let's say you're not a Luxac, you're not a whale, and you only have so many parts to play with. Because otherwise, you don't have to build around the word tags and you have a nice selection of high stat parts with good distributions for what you're building. Get out of here. Anyhow, to be short, if activating a word tag means you lose stats to do so, the amount you get back from the percent has to eclipse the lost stats to make up for it. Obviously. To make it a bit longer, if I had 10k melee attack, and I needed one more close combat word tag to get the buff, the part I'm switching out can't have me lose more than 500 melee attack, or I've already lost any bonus that the tag would have given me. At least with Pro Tag, you have a little more breathing room, 1,000 points in all. Well, technically less, since I'm still basing the math off of a 10k instead of the new value's 10% or lower overall pool, whatever. Point being, if building around the word tags mean you're suffering a net loss in your raw stats, it's not worth the increase that it's going to give you back. To top it off, with gear being added into the game and coming into play, you can just augment your stat pool without sacrificing parts for these extra stat boosts. So I've said a lot of words. Time to summarize a little bit. C power means nothing. It's an inflated value based off of EX skill levels and part rarity. High stats can mean high C power, but high C power does not always mean high stats. An argument can be made for offensive EX skills doing more damage, but these still rely on raw stats. And raw stats are everything in Gunpla Warfare. If you want to build a beefy defender, go ahead. Just know you won't win by turtling the higher level content. You do need to eventually hit the enemy. Whether relief or ally machines do it, it doesn't matter, but they need the attack stats to actually hurt the damn things. Higher stats mean that this is easier and you can break through their defenses a lot quicker, and 100 points can be the difference between a clear or a loss. Finally, word tags can be nice, but are mostly eclipsed by the ease of use that gear brings, and typically a player will have to build around the word tags to activate them, losing net stat in the process. It's not worth it, unless you have a vast array of high stat parts to select from, or you lucked out and have the right parts. But that's a real edge case, and most players don't have that capability. So what does this mean for you as a player, if you suffer from a low or spread statted machine? Well, I recommend looking at the max value of the parts you do have, and figuring out how to best put together a melee or shot-focused machine. Or both. Artificially pumping your C power won't fix the core problem. Breaking 3,000, 6,000, and 9,000 are all good milestones to aim towards. Once you get your attack stats past 10k, you're looking at a much easier time doing damage. I do find, personally, melee tends to be the most potent damage type, and it has a lot of options available, so keep that in mind. Now, you can put together a decent machine from all the welfare parts that we've gathered thus far, and tossing the arena parts into the mix as well should make your life a little bit easier. I won't be putting down any ideas to try, however, because I don't know what everyone has access to, and I'd rather not be making how to build guides. With that, I've wrapped up pretty much everything that I wanted to say about this subject. Remember, this is a gacha game. You might just be stuck waiting for Lady Luck to give you materials to work with, and that's what relief gunplas are for. Peace out, see you guys in the next video.